What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It's HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video, and welcome to day 19 of the 31 Days of Horror Challenge in October. Now that we are on day 19 of the challenge, I figured I'd talk about another film that I feel is one of the more underrated, sort of like, in a way, like a documentary kind of like style horror film. Even though I know maybe this might be considered like a cult classic nowadays, but I feel like it's still one of the more underrated movies, and also it's kind of like it's kind of like one of those 80s sort of their take on like an exploitation type movie, and I think it's one of the best horror films from the 80s period. I mean, this film is fantastic, and if you can tell by the title of the video, let me just get myself straightened out here for a minute. But getting on to the film itself, that review is going to be on Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Now, unfortunately, there's no tagline for the movie, so I'm always used to saying the taglines on the front cover of the Blu-ray or DVD, but unfortunately this one does not have one, just like the Trick or Treat one. But Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer was released it was made in 1986, but it wasn't released until 1990. I know this film had a really troubled, delayed, release because of the controversies surrounding it, whether it be, an X-rated movie or, things like that, because it might be considered, too violent or things like that. It does have some graphic moments here and there, but it's not really a film that's up to today's standards, with the stuff that comes out nowadays. But I think it's one of those films where it's the best at dealing with those kind of exploitation type movies. I think this is the way you do it, the right way, and in a very, very effective way. Now, the basic idea with the story is that you have Michael Rooker in his very first film. Michael Rooker, a fantastic actor. Michael Rooker is an actor who I've always enjoyed. From this film, Cliffhanger, Mallrats, the Guardians of the Galaxy films, Days of Thunder, the Dark Half. I've always really enjoyed Michael Rooker as an actor. Really great character actor, very solid actor. I think he's one of the more underrated actors out there. I think out of Michael Rooker's performances, this is his best performance, but my favorite film with Michael Rooker in it is Mallrats, but I still think this is his best performance as Henry. Basically, Henry is a guy who's a serial killer, and he goes on this killing spree and things like that. He gets released from prison, and he goes to live somewhere, and his roommate is a buddy that he met in prison, character of Otis, played by the late great Tom Towles, who was in Devil's Rejects and a lot of other stuff, and they're living together as roommates. And Tom Towles' sister is coming into town to visit, and she stays with Tom Towles and Michael Rooker. And as time goes on, you can really get the sense of the psyche of Henry and things like that. And Michael Rooker just gives a powerhouse performance as Henry. He's terrifying, he's creepy, and I just love the way that Michael Rooker portrayed the character of Henry. It's easily, like I said, his best performance I've ever seen him do. He's really good in films like Cliffhanger and things like that, but this right here is his best performance. And Tom Towles, I really miss Tom Towles. May he rest in peace. Devil's Rejects, and just tons and tons of other stuff. A lot of other horror stuff that he did. This is directed by John McNaughton. I think this is the same. Yeah. Now that I think about it, it is. This is the same guy that went on to direct Wild Things with Neve Campbell and Kevin Bacon, things like that. Yeah, the same guy that went on to do Wild Things did this film. And when I say, I'll tell you what too, one of the big positives I can say about this film is the music. The musical score in this is probably one of the most creepiest, most atmospheric scores that you can ever ask for in a horror film. Like, especially this one piece of music where, like, the show, like, how, like, this is like an exploitation film done the right way without showing too much, is because it is an R-rated film, but, you know, you see a lot of, like, aftermath scenes. Like, there's literally points in the film where Michael Rooker is treating these people with kindness and things like that, and then, like, there's aftermath of, like, dead bodies everywhere, things like that. And when I say, like, there's a part in the film where it's a really creepy musical score, it's one of the aftermath scenes, and you see, like, this woman, like, on the floor, like, hanging, well, not really, like, on the floor, but, like, hanging from the wall, and you see, like, this glass bottle, like, stuck in her face, and it's graphic, and you hear, like, a musical score where it's mixed in with, like, what you hear what happened to her, like the screams and things like that. So in a way, the musical score is kind of mixed in with screams and all stuff, so that way we can hear what happened to her, but you don't see it, which I think is a really good, interesting piece of filmmaking by John McNaughton. I really do think it's a really unique way to direct your movie. And on top of that too, you know, and, you know, Henry, you know, Michael Rooker, powerhouse performance, like I said, you know, there's a point in the film where Tom Towles is grabbing his sister, you know, trying to play around, you know, try to mess around with her and things like that, and Michael Rooker grabs him by the hair and he says, you know, don't do that, Otis. That's your sister. Now you say you're sorry. And things like that, and there's some really pretty good gore stuff, like a person gets stabbed in the eyeball. There's a point in the film where Michael Rooker and Tom Towles, they have to buy a new TV, so they go to this this TV shop, and the owner is being an asshole and messing around with them and things like that. And Michael Rooker and Tom Towles kill this guy. They stab him to death, and then Michael Rooker takes the TV and smashes it on the guy's head, and you see blood come down. And they plug in the TV and they electrocute the guy, and they steal this TV set that he had and this video camera that he had, and they take off without any detection. And like I said, the film is also filmed in the vein of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of like film. If you remember, like, the way that the original Chainsaw Massacre film was, the way it was filmed, this film kind of has like a similar vibe, and it was done for really dirt cheap. I think it cost like $110,000 to make, and they did an excellent job making a film on such a low budget. I mean, great musical score. You have a great performance in Michael Rooker as Henry, just a fantastic powerhouse performance. Tom Towles is really good. I love the direction that John McNaughton had for the film. I love the way it's filmed, kind of like a gritty sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, mixed with like a horror, mixed like I said, it's a horror film kind of mixed with like a documentary about this guy and things like that. And it's one of those films that you don't want to say too much about and things like that. It's really hard for me to like talk about a whole lot of stuff without ruining stuff. I'd say what the ending is really bone chilling. I will say that it's a really bone chilling ending. And when you see the film, you know what I mean. But I don't want to spoil too much more about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. But if you want to see another really good 80s horror that you probably haven't seen yet, or maybe you might have seen, but if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you check this out. So that is pretty much it for my review for Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.